Part 1 of August 6, 1945, 8:15 a.m. A bright summer sun hangs over Hiroshima. Cicadas scream in the trees. Streetcars rattle along their tracks. A delivery boy pedals hard across a bridge, sweat on his neck, the river below flashing silver in the heat. Office clerks sort papers near open windows. A mother shakes out a futon. Somewhere overhead, a distant engine hums, faint, almost harmless. The air smells of river water and coal smoke. Then the sky begins to change. The morning had started quietly. Hiroshima, a city of roughly 350,000 people, had been spared the worst of the firebombing that devastated Tokyo and dozens of other Japanese cities. It was an important military center, headquarters of the Japanese Second Army, a hub for troop movements and logistics, but its buildings still stood. Its wooden houses and tiled roofs clustered along the Ota River Delta, divided by 6 channels of water. Bridges linked neighborhoods like veins. And the weeks before, air raid sirens had wailed often. American B-29 bombers had passed overhead, sometimes dropping leaflets, sometimes flying reconnaissance. But Hiroshima had never suffered a major bombing raid. Some residents believed it had been intentionally preserved. Others feared something worse. Meanwhile, thousands of miles away in the New Mexico desert, a secret had already reshaped the war. On July 16, 1945, at 5:29 a.m., the first atomic device, codenamed Trinity, detonated at the Alamogordo bombing range. Scientists from the Manhattan Project watched a light brighter than the sun erupt over the desert floor. Robert Oppenheimer later recalled a line from the Bhagavad Gita, "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds." The test confirmed what theory had promised. The bomb worked. The weapon destined for Hiroshima was different from the plutonium device tested at Trinity. It was a uranium-235 gun-type bomb, codenamed Little Boy. It had never been tested before combat use. Engineers were confident in its design. It weighed nearly 10,000 pounds and measured about 10 feet long. Inside, conventional explosives would fire one piece of uranium into another, triggering a nuclear chain reaction in a fraction of a second. The decision to use it came from the highest levels of the U.S. government. President Harry S. Truman, informed of the Trinity test while attending the Potsdam Conference in Germany, authorized the use of atomic weapons against Japan. The stated objective was force Japan's surrender and avoid a planned invasion of the Japanese home islands, which U.S. military estimates predicted would cause massive casualties on both sides. On July 26, 1945, the United States, Britain, and China issued the Potsdam Declaration, demanding Japan's unconditional surrender. It warned of prompt and utter destruction if Japan refused. The Japanese government did not immediately accept the terms. In late July, the components of Little Boy were transported across the Pacific to Tinian Island in the Mariana Islands. There, the 509th Composite Group of the U.S. Army Air Forces prepared for a mission unlike any other. The unit had trained in secrecy for months. Its commander, Colonel Paul W. Tibbets, Jr., had personally selected the crew. The aircraft chosen for the mission was a modified B-29 Superfortress. Tibbets had named it after his mother, Enola Gay. Mechanics stripped unnecessary equipment to reduce weight and installed specialized bomb release mechanisms. The uranium projectile was inserted into the bomb only after the plane was airborne. For safety, in the early hours of August 6, 1945, ground crews worked under floodlights on Tinian's North Field. The tropical air was thick and warm. Technicians carefully loaded Little Boy into the bomb bay. Final checks were completed. At 2:45 a.m., Enola Gay lifted off the runway, its engines roaring into the dark Pacific sky. 2 other B-29s accompanied it, the Great Artiste, carrying instruments to measure the blast, and Necessary Evil, assigned to photograph the mission. Weather reconnaissance planes had already flown ahead toward potential targets, Hiroshima, Kokura, and Nagasaki. Clear skies would determine the final choice. As dawn broke over Japan, Hiroshima's residents moved through ordinary routines. Students had been mobilized for building demolition work, clearing fire breaks to slow potential air raids. Soldiers marched between barracks. Shopkeepers arranged goods on shelves. The sky was nearly cloudless. Shortly after 7:00 a.m., radar operators in Hiroshima detected approaching aircraft. Air raid sirens sounded briefly, but only a small number of planes appeared on the screen. Believing it to be a reconnaissance flight, authorities lifted the alert. People stepped back outside at approximately 7:30 a.m. Enola Gay reached its initial point over the Japanese mainland. Bombardier Major Thomas Farabee prepared the Norden bombsight. The target was the Aioi Bridge, a distinctive T-shaped bridge near the city center, easily identifiable from the air. Inside the aircraft, the crew wore protective goggles. They had been instructed not to look directly at the flash. Final arming procedures were completed mid-flight by Navy Captain William Dayak Parsons, who had climbed into the bomb bay to insert the explosive charge. The bomb was now live. Below, Hiroshima remained unaware at 8:09 a.m. Enola Gay began its bomb run at approximately 31,000 feet. The aircraft held steady. Farabee focused through the bomb sight. Tibbets maintained course. The city filled the crosshairs. 8:15 a.m. bomb away. Little boy fell silently for 43 seconds. On the ground. A flash ignited the sky. A light described by survivors as bluish-white, brighter than magnesium, brighter than the sun. Shadows burned into stone. Roof tiles lifted. Skin blistered instantly under thermal radiation measuring several thousand degrees Celsius at the hypercenter. The bomb detonated approximately 1,900 feet above the city, almost directly over the Shima Surgical Clinic, just southeast of the Aioi Bridge. The explosion yielded an estimated 15 kilotons of TNT. A fireball nearly 600 meters in diameter expanded in less than a second. Then came the blast wave. Buildings within a mile were crushed. Concrete structures cracked. Wooden homes disintegrated. The pressure wave traveled outward at hundreds of miles per hour, followed by a rushing wind that carried debris and flame. Inside Enola Gay, the crew felt two shockwaves rock the aircraft as they banked sharply away. Tibbets later described seeing a rising column of smoke boiling upward, turning purple, gray, and black. Within minutes, a mushroom-shaped cloud climbed toward 40,000 feet. Below, Hiroshima was vanishing. An estimated 70,000 to 80,000 people died by the end of that day. Tens of thousands more would succumb in the weeks, months, and years that followed from burns, injuries, and radiation sickness. Entire neighborhoods were flattened. Fires merged into a firestorm, but in that first instant, in that blinding flash, most people had no idea what had happened. There was no warning of a new weapon. No precedent. Only light, heat, and silence before the roar. And as the mushroom cloud climbed higher and higher into the morning sky, one question began to echo across military headquarters, across political chambers, across the stunned remains of a city. What had humanity just unleashed? August 6, 1945, 8:16 a.m. The city is no longer a city. A boiling column of smoke punches upward into the blue sky, dragging fire and dust with it. Below, a ring of destruction spreads outward at terrifying speed. Windows shatter miles away. People who had been standing are thrown to the ground. Those closest to the hypercenter simply disappear, reduced to shadows burned into concrete steps and bridge railings. Within seconds, temperatures at the center of the blast reach several thousand degrees Celsius. Roof tiles melt. Granite surfaces crack and blister. Wooden homes ignite almost instantly. Clothing bursts into flame. Human skin, exposed to the thermal flash, suffers third-degree burns in a heartbeat. Survivors later describe a single word again and again. Flash, then darkness. The blast wave arrives after the light. A crushing pressure front that slams into buildings and bodies alike. Concrete walls shear off. Wooden houses collapse into splinters. Steel beams twist. The shockwave travels outward at hundreds of miles per hour, followed by violent winds that feed dozens of fires into one growing inferno. The hypercenter, near the Shima Surgical Clinic, destruction is nearly absolute. The hospital itself collapses. Doctors, nurses, patients, gone in an instant. Across the Aioi Bridge, people are hurled into the river. Some jump voluntarily, their clothes burning, desperate to cool their skin. The Ota River fills with bodies, living and dead. Meanwhile, at 31,000 feet, Enola Gay banks sharply to avoid the shockwave. The crew counts the seconds. Then the aircraft jolts, once, twice, as the blast reaches them even at that altitude. They turn to look. What they see is unlike anything in warfare. A massive cloud, red and purple at its base, churning upward in a violent column. Within minutes it rises above 30,000 feet, forming the now familiar mushroom shape. Pilot Paul Tibbets later describes it as a boiling mass of purple-grey smoke. Others recall a towering pillar that seemed alive. Onboard instruments aboard the Great Artiste record blast data. Necessary Evil captures photographs of the expanding cloud. None of the crew fully understands the scale of devastation below. Back in Hiroshima, the fires begin to merge. The combination of extreme heat and shattered infrastructure creates a firestorm. Air rushes inward toward the center of the blaze, feeding oxygen to the flames. Entire neighborhoods ignite. Wooden homes, paper walls, tatami mats, fuel everywhere. Survivors stagger through streets that no longer resemble streets. Many are burned beyond recognition. Skin hangs from arms in strips. Some are blinded by the flash. Others wander silently, clothes torn away by the blast, bodies covered in ash and blood. Black rain begins to fall within an hour. It is thick, oily, and dark, a mixture of soot, dust, and radioactive particles drawn into the sky by the rising fireball and condensed in the cooling air. People drink it, desperate for water. They do not know it carries contamination. Hiroshima Red Cross Hospital, one of the few reinforced concrete buildings still partially standing. Surviving doctors attempt to treat thousands of injured. Supplies are almost non-existent. Many medical staff are dead or wounded themselves. There are no bandages, no adequate painkillers. The scale is overwhelming. Communication collapses. Telephone lines are severed. Military headquarters in Tokyo receives only fragmentary reports. At first, officials believe Hiroshima has suffered a massive conventional bombing. But reconnaissance aircraft soon confirm something different. The city appears to have been destroyed by a single bomb. In Washington, President Truman is informed that the attack has been carried out. Later that day, the White House releases a statement announcing the use of a new weapon, an atomic bomb, against Hiroshima, describing it as harnessing the power of the universe. The message is also broadcast to Japan, but inside the Japanese government, confusion reigns. Scientists are dispatched to investigate. Among them is physicist Yoshio Nishina, who travels to Hiroshima and quickly concludes the city was destroyed by an atomic explosion. The implications are staggering. Japan's military leadership is divided. Some argue the nation must continue fighting, hoping to secure better surrender terms. Others recognize that a weapon of this magnitude changes everything. Yet even after Hiroshima, there is no immediate decision to surrender. Meanwhile, survivors in the city begin to experience symptoms no one fully understands. Those who appeared uninjured start vomiting. Hair falls out in clumps. Purple spots form under the skin. High fevers set in. These are the first visible signs of acute radiation sickness, though the term itself is not widely known. By the evening of August 6th, fires still burn across Hiroshima. Approximately 70% of the city's buildings are destroyed or severely damaged. Tens of thousands are dead. Many more are dying, and yet, 3 days later, another B-29 will take off from Tinian. Its target will not be Hiroshima. It will be a city that was not the primary objective at all, and as Japan's leaders struggle to grasp what happened in a single blinding instant, the question grows heavier: was one demonstration enough to end a war, or had the nuclear age only just begun? August 9th, 1945, 3:47 a.m. another B-29 lifts off from Tinian Island in the Mariana Islands. Its name is Boxcar. Its mission mirrors the one flown 3 days earlier. Inside its bomb bay rests a different kind of weapon, a plutonium implosion-type device codenamed Fat Man, similar in design to the one tested at Trinity. The primary target is Kokura cloud cover, and smoke from previous bombing raids obscure the aiming point. The aircraft makes multiple passes. Fuel is burning fast. Anti-aircraft fire rises from below. After nearly 45 minutes, with visibility still poor, the crew turns toward the secondary target Nagasaki.AT-11, 2 a.m. Fat Man detonates approximately 1,650 feet above the Urakami Valley. The explosion yields roughly 21 kilotons. The surrounding hills contain some of the blast, but the destruction is immense. An estimated 40,000 people die instantly. By the end of 1945, total deaths from Nagasaki will reach approximately 70,000.2 cities. 2 atomic bombs. In 3 days, the shock reverberates through Japan's highest leadership circles. On August 9th, the same day as Nagasaki, the Soviet Union declares war on Japan and invades Manchuria, crushing the Japanese Kwantung Army. The strategic situation collapses from multiple directions at once. That night, Japan's Supreme War Council meets. The members are deadlocked. Some insist on continuing the war, demanding conditions such as preservation of the imperial system and no occupation of the home islands. Others argue the atomic bombings prove resistance is futile. For the first time in modern Japanese history, Emperor Hirohito intervenes directly in a political decision. In the early hours of August 10th, he expresses support for accepting the terms of the Potsdam Declaration, provided the position of the emperor as sovereign ruler is preserved. Negotiations continue through tense days. Even after the emperor's decision, elements within the military attempt a coup to prevent surrender. On August 15, 1945, Hirohito's recorded voice is broadcast across Japan. Many citizens have never heard him speak before. In formal, archaic language, he announces acceptance of the Allied terms. He does not explicitly use the word surrender, but the meaning is unmistakable. The war is over. World War II, the deadliest conflict in human history, ends not with a final battle on a beach or battlefield, but with a voice on the radio and the memory of 2 blinding flashes. In Hiroshima and Nagasaki, survivors begin a long struggle that will last decades. They will later be known as hibakusha, bomb-affected people. Many face lifelong health complications. Leukemia rates rise in the years following the bombings. Solid cancers increase over time. Cataracts, chronic illnesses, and psychological trauma mark thousands of lives. In 1947, the Atomic Bomb Casualty Commission begins long-term medical studies of survivors. Decades of research will shape global understanding of radiation exposure, dose-response relationships, and long-term health risks. The data gathered, often under difficult and controversial circumstances, becomes foundational to modern radiation science. Meanwhile, the world absorbs the implications. The United States remains the only nation with atomic weapons for 4 years. In 1949, the Soviet Union successfully tests its own bomb. The nuclear arms race begins. Hydrogen bombs, thousands of times more powerful than Little Boy, are developed in the 1950s. Intercontinental ballistic missiles follow. The mushroom cloud becomes a symbol recognized everywhere. Air raid drills in American schools. Fallout shelters in backyards. The doctrine of mutually assured destruction. Entire generations grow up under the shadow of weapons first used over Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and yet, historians continue to debate, did the atomic bombings alone force Japan's surrender? Or did the Soviet invasion weigh just as heavily? Would a conventional invasion of Japan have cost more lives than the bombings? Archival documents show Japanese leaders were deeply divided even after Hiroshima. The entry of the Soviet Union into the war shocked Tokyo strategically. The atomic bomb demonstrated unprecedented destructive power. Multiple forces converged in a single week. What is certain is this. On August 6, 1945, at 8:15 a.m., humanity crossed a threshold. A weapon drawing power from the splitting of atoms was used against a living city. The scale of destruction compressed into seconds changed military strategy, diplomacy, and the psychology of war forever. Today, the Hiroshima Peace Memorial stands near the hypercenter. The skeletal dome of the former Industrial Promotion Hall remains preserved as it stood after the blast, a concrete shell beneath open sky. Each year on August 6th, a moment of silence is observed at 8:15 a.m. Bells ring. Names are read. Paper cranes accumulate in the thousands, not as statistics. As people. The story of Hiroshima is not only about physics, or aircraft, or political decisions made in distant rooms. It is about ordinary mornings interrupted. It is about the fragile line between scientific breakthrough and human consequence. The Manhattan Project proved that theoretical equations on chalkboards could reshape the planet. The bombings proved that technological capability does not arrive with moral clarity attached. That part remains in human hands. As we look back, we are left with uncomfortable truths. Innovation can save lives. It can also end them in an instant. Power can deter war. It can also threaten existence. Nearly 80 years later, nuclear weapons still exist. Thousands of warheads remain in global arsenals. The legacy of Hiroshima is not confined to history books. It lives in treaties, in diplomacy, in the careful language of deterrence, in the quiet hope that such weapons are never used again. A single flash ended a world war. But it also began an age in which the survival of civilization depends not on who can build the most powerful weapon, but on who has the wisdom never to use it. And that question, about restraint, responsibility, and the weight of knowledge, is not buried in 1945. It is still with us.